Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think Carol, in my session here is the very last one of the day. So we're going to be talking to you about some different energy efficiency and options throughout. So I'm Janelle Dobbins with Evergy. You may or may not be our customer, but there's parts of my presentation that will work for you no matter if you happen to have us as your utility or not. So why energy efficiency? As I think all of you guys probably know, energy efficiency at the end of the day helps everyone. It helps our neighbors, our communities, and there's multiple things you can get from it. It reduces emissions and improves the health. It benefits society, boosts the economy, reduces the demand, and enhances our overall electric system. So let's first, we are in the middle of winter. Not that you can tell by the temperatures right now, especially when we're hitting 70 in February. But there's lots of little small, easy things you can do that will add up over those months to get you savings. So one is always utilizing your windows. If you have a south-facing window, obviously leave those blinds open during the day when that sun is shining in, so you're getting that warmth. And then close them at night to lessen any of that warmth leaving your home. Also tape clear plastic film to the inside of your window frames during winter. That's going to minimize the cold being able to get inside. And also install tight-fitting insulated drapes or shades on those windows that are feeling drafty. Finding and sealing leaks is also always important. Adding caulk or weather stripping to any of those seal leaks around the leaky doors and windows. Obviously, caulk is best for sealing leaks through cracks or gaps where it's not going to be moving versus you want the weather stripping on anything that's actually going to be on doors or windows that are opening and closing. Also, adjust that temperature when it comes to your thermostat. Set the thermostat as low as you're comfortable with while you're at home, and that's going to give you some savings. Turn the thermostat back when you're asleep or you're out of the house. Like when you're at an event like this, it doesn't need to be as warm as when you're at the home. So make sure to do that. You can save about 10% per year doing that. And one of the ways is if you're an Evergy customer, you can get a free smart thermostat or Wi-Fi enabled thermostat through us. If you're not Evergy customer, still look into that because it really makes sense. Because then if you walk out of the house for the day and you forgot to change your thermostat, you can do it from your phone and you're going to be able to get those savings. Also, if you're on a time-based plan, so those are when pricing of rates are different depending on what time of day it is. That's what a time-based plan is. You can also look at taking advantage of those lower peak times to make sure to heat up the house during the lower peak. Maybe it cools down during that high peak. And then once again, when you get to that lower pricing, you can heat it back up. And then adjust the thermostat to about 3 degrees below your preferred one during those peak hours. And then when you get off the peak, which for us, peak hours are considered 4 to 8 p.m. That's when you would, after that, want to have it go back up. Maintaining your heating system. So as probably many of you know in your HVAC, making sure you're always getting routine service on that each year. That's going to make your system last longer and also run better. Replacing your furnace filters. It might be every month, it might be every other month. It depends on if you have pets in your home, how dusty your home might be, etc. But always be checking that to make sure it's running most efficient. And then if you have a wood or pellet burning heater, make sure you're cleaning that flue vent. Also just going to look to minimize heat loss from your fireplace. Keeping the fireplace damp or closed unless the fire is burning, because otherwise if it's not closed, all that warm air is going to just escape through the chimney. It's going to make your house feel cooler instead of warmer. Also, make sure you check that seal on the fireplace flue damper and make it as snug as possible to be keeping that warm air in. Again, caulking, maybe look at caulking around the fireplace part that's needed. And then plugging and sealing the chimney flue if you never use your fireplace. If it's just there for decorative, that's totally fine, but just make sure you're not losing your warmth out that way. Also, take advantage of your ceiling fan. Hopefully all of you know your ceiling fan can go both ways. It can go clockwise and it can go counterclockwise, and you want to make sure you have it set correct for the time of year. So in winter, you want to make sure the fans are rotating clockwise. So that's pushing that warm air back down from the room. Because the warm air is, of course, raised, warm air goes up. So when it's clockwise, it's going to help push it back down and keep that room. And most ceiling fans just have a little switch on. that you switch to make sure that it's going counterclockwise or clockwise. Also consider your water temperature. Nope, we're not saying anyone should take a cold shower. That's not it. But you want to kind of look at having your water heater to the warm setting about 120 degrees is going to give you your best savings on that energy. And just using less hot water. Take a shower instead of a bath. It's really pretty big. A shower uses about 20 gallons of hot water. If you take about a 10-minute shower versus if you're taking that bath, it's going to be possibly 70 gallons needed to fill that bathtub. So that's an easy savings you can also do. And then in the kitchen, if you're just rinsing some vegetables and stuff, cold water is going to get off what you need off those vegetables. So just use the cold water then versus if you're washing dishes or whatever, and that might be when you're needing that hot water. And on that, really rinse your vegetables first in that cold and then switch it over to the hot water. And of course, using smart bulbs. As you all know, LED bulbs, they've been out for a while, but they are a lot more energy efficient. They use about 75% less than old incandescent bulbs and stuff. So just look at being able to switch out those little items in your house. And then the last one for all of our energy savings tips is just being mindful of your appliances. How old are they? How efficient are they? And just making sure you're running it when it's most efficient. So like your dishwasher, don't run it if it's not full. Make sure you've loaded it the correct way. Most dishwashers come with directions of the best way to be the most efficient. And then just when you get them all full, run it. Also, your washing machine, make sure it's set to appropriate water level. Some of the newer ones now will automatically sense that, but if you're having to switch it from low, medium, high, just make sure you remember how many clothes you've thrown in there and that it's at the right setting. And actually, unless you're at some of the dirtiest loads, they can be washed in cold water. Set your refrigerator temperature between 38 and 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and then your freezer obviously should be at 0. And that's going to make sure, you want to make sure they're both sealed tightly. So when you think about that, if you put your hand up to open the freezer and you first notice cold air coming out of that before you even started opening the freezer, your seal is not tight enough. And on that, lots of times, you can just replace a seal. You don't have to replace the whole refrigerator. And then when using your clothes dryer, just make sure the easy thing, clean the lint filter. It's a small thing, but it does make a really big difference. And then if your dryer actually has the auto dry or moisture sensor setting, use that because that's going to know better than you taking a guess of setting it for, I think this needs 20, 25 minutes. That should work on that. So residential programs. So these are going to be more specific to our Evergy customers versus just any of you in the room. So on residential, one, our new energy efficiency programs, we have these through February of 2028 when we will go back and ask for them to be hopefully for a longer point of time. But these show our commitment and just the commitment to energy efficiency. And during this program that started about 1.5 years ago and goes till February of 2028, we're saving about 35,000 equivalent number of cars taken off the road annually. About 19,000 homes can be powered with that energy that's saved annually from these programs. 220,000 megawatt annual energy savings and about 27 million in anticipated net bill savings across those years of the programs. So the first one is the thermostat program, which I kind of hinted about earlier. So if you are an Evergy customer, you can get a free Wi-Fi enabled thermostat through us. Or if you already have a Google Nest, Ecobee, Sensi, or Honeywell, you will then get $100 for ready-made energy efficient. And what this means is one, you are enrolled in our thermostat program. So as I say, it's about the third day of 100 degrees, people call what's called an energy savings event. And what that means is from 3 to 4 p.m. we'll pre-cool your house. From 4 to 6 p.m. at most, it'll go up 4 degrees. Sorry, I think I might.
Yeah, let's
be cutting in and out. And I don't know if this is working.
Press a little bit longer.
Okay.
All right, let's go back to this one.
So sorry, everybody. Okay, hopefully, yeah, this will work again. So from 3 to 4 p.m., as I said, we pre-cool the house. 4 to 6 p.m., just those 2 hours. At most, your thermostat will go up 4 degrees. Now, during that time, you still ultimately control your thermostat. If during those 2 hours you think it gets too hot, you can go over to your thermostat or go to your app on your phone and change it. We have been doing this in the Missouri side for 10 years, and when we did a survey, 84% of the people said they never even noticed the difference during that 4 to 6 p.m. time. And it's definitely, you also get some savings because you're not running your air conditioner as much during those peak hours. We also have the Evergy Marketplace now in Kansas. So what that means is you can go online and we sell everything from a weatherization kit to an air purifier to even freezers, refrigerators, and they have reduction of prices. So some of them may be rebates or they may be sales going on. So if you're looking for more energy efficiency items, just give this a quick look because you might be able to find definitely a better deal. Now, heating and cooling and insulation rebates. The first thing I want to note about these, both of these rebates go through the contractor. So you just want to make sure your contractor is working with Evergy. It doesn't cost them anything to work with us. They just have to do an hour training to make sure they understand how the rebates work so they give you accurate information. On the heating and cooling, you're going to have a possibility of up to $1,000 back, and that's all on your SEER level. So the more energy efficient that you're getting that system, the more likely you're going to get up closer to that $1,000 rebate. Now, on the air sealing and insulation, one of the main things I do want to say on that is the first thing is you have to do an energy audit. That we'll get a rebate back for that, but that's the very first step. After that energy audit, they'll tell you how much insulation they recommend, and then once you get that insulation, that's when that insulation rebate hit it. But once again, goes through the contractor, so just make sure the contractor you're working with is working with us. And how you find that out, when you go on to evergy.com/save, we have a find a contractor and they list all of them. So either pick one of those, or if your one that you prefer doesn't, just have them call us. We'll work on getting them trained ASAP so you can work with them to get any of these done. We also have home energy analysis, and on this, it's about a 5-minute questionnaire. It's online. It's going to ask you about how you use your energy. And then at the end of it, it's going to give you very personalized specifics back of here are ways you can save on your energy bill. Also, it'll give you compare usage to similar homes in your area that might have similar square footage. And particularly right now, when you go online and do that and complete the analysis, and if you want, you can fill out a giveaway entry form that will put you into win, possibly win one of 2 $500 gift cards that we're going to be giving out. So how to stay up to date on all programs. I know I've thrown a lot of information for you. I do have handouts out at the table if you want some of those after I've reviewed all of this, but really you can always go to this evergy.com/save. That's where we're going to have the latest information about what programs are available, talk about the different rebates, give you more information than maybe my high-level quick talk is giving you on that, and then also get practical tips on improving energy efficiency. We have lots, like I went through some of those winter ones. We have ones for spring, for summer. We have tips for throughout the year that you can always work on. Now, we also do have business programs. And some of these business programs work for small businesses, and that's why I'm going to bring them up. I have handouts also available on those. So depending on how you might have your farm, if it's done as a small business, and what you might need to be doing. So the first ones is we have just with your workplace, you can get rewarded for doing upgrades. So like we have what's called standard incentives. And those are working for just quick upgrades like lighting, commercial refrigeration, HVAC, etc. And then we also have custom incentives, and those are paid on a per kilowatt hour reduced rate. Pre-approval is required on that custom incentive, but I will tell you on this, I have someone you can call, you can talk through with them. They'll explain all of this. You don't have to kind of figure this all out on your own. They can look at the systems and tell you what would have rebates and what wouldn't. Also, we have for maybe a larger business, we have what's referred to as business demand response. So how that works is when demand for energy is high, once again, as I said, that third day of 100 degrees or summer's hottest afternoons, we may call a business demand response event. And that is in working with companies and creating a customized plan that suits their unique operational needs. So depending on what hours they might be able to curtail some of their energy and put it to a different time. They're always notified before the events occur. And then at the end of the season, we actually pay an incentive check back for the load that they were able to reduce for that. So in 2024, across Kansas and Missouri, earned about $1 million in cash incentives for being able to move that energy to different times to use. We also have, as I talked about, that home energy analyzer that any of you guys could do. We also have that on the business side. Same type of things that it can go in. It'll give them personalized recommendations of how to look at that. It'll give them benchmarking trends so they kind of know if they're running with similar sized businesses and their usage. It'll give them data analysis of how to work things, and then also real-time insights. So you're able to look at your data usage as recent as midnight the night prior. And just so you also know as an individual, if you are an Evergy customer, if you go on to your My Account, at any point in time there, you can actually look at how you used your usage yesterday, how you used it for last week, how you used it month over month. You can look at that history. There are lots of tools. Also, we now have time-based plans. We used to always mainly just have a standard plan and one time base. Now we have two different time base. We have a nights and weekends, we have a summer peak and a standard. When you're in that My Account, there's a compare my rate tool. On that, you can literally hit that button. It will look at your usage over the last 12 months. And it will tell you if you are on what would be the cheapest rate for how you use it. So it might tell you, hey, it's actually cheaper to change to nights and weekends because when we look at your usage, this is how it's doing. So that's a newer thing that's come out this year. So as I tell folks, hey, once a year, if you're changing your batteries in your smoker alarm or whatever's kind of a regular once a year, just always check that. Because if there's a cheaper rate plan that you could be on, we want you to be on. So just always be looking to check on that. And business is very similar to our residential. You can always go to evergy.com, ways to save / incentives, always be kind of checking and seeing how you're doing on the time with that. And does anyone have any questions? Because we still have Carol coming after me, so I want to give her plenty of time.
Carolyn, air intrusion is a big deal in the winter time. And the way we run our dryer is blowing all that hot air out with humidity. It's got to be sucking air in from somewhere. Is there any way to manage that better?
You're saying with the air intrusion for your dryer of as it's blowing the hot air out, is there a way to increase having the hot air come back into
or something different?
That's a great question. From what I have found from asking, so far they have not changed the dryer system in a lot of years at all. And we have not seen anything yet as we have been looking at other states or seeing anything, but it's a very good point. And I am not aware, but I will make a note of that to do some more checking on it because you are correct. You hate to see that hot air going out in the winter when you're still trying to heat your home.
Yeah. Something's replacing it, man. They warm.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else? Otherwise, I'll be back out at the table afterwards and I've got handouts and stuff.
Quick, the rebate program,
Yep.
that's only if people buy equipment through Evergy.
If you are an Evergy customer.
Or if you're an Evergy customer and you buy a piece of equipment that's energy efficient, you can get $1,000 rebate. But can I buy it from my HVAC guy or do I have to buy it through?
Yeah, no, we don't sell any HVAC. So you would be working with your contractor, but you do just need to make sure the contractor is working with us. And the working with us just means they've done an hour training to make sure and understand the rebates. So how the HVAC one works is you would go to evergy.com/save. You would click on heating and cooling, then you would click on find a contractor. you would put in your address or your zip code. You would see if your company that you normally use is listed. If they're already listed, no problem, call them up. Tell them they will come look at your system, then they should give you options saying, okay, if you did SEER level 16, here's the amount rebate you would do with
I
this.
was just wondering if it was